Hello and welcome to today's live entrepreneur session. My name is Dan Taylor and I am partner and head of technical SEO at SALT.agency. SALT.agency are a specialist organic search marketing agency based out of the UK, but we serve clients across the US, Europe, EMEA, and the rest of the world. So today I want to just briefly touch on and kind of discuss over how Amazon's Rufus may actually affect our target customers, regardless if we're selling through Amazon or generally in the e-com space. The primary reason behind this is that we tend to look at Amazon as a benchmark in e-commerce. A lot of Amazon's user experience features, their UX, their differentiations have actually set user expectations across a lot of e-commerce, and it's been a long-held myth, and there might be justification behind it, but the fact that Amazon have their search bar quite prominently top and center, that leads to user expectations and familiarity across the internet of where to look. So, for those who don't know what Rufus is, let's kick things off there. Easy for me to say. So in February 2024, Amazon actually introduced Rufus across a beta set of users, and I believe across the US. And recently, in October, it has launched across the rest of the world. So Rufus is a generative AI-powered kind of conversational assistant integrated directly within the actual primary Amazon shopping app. It is designed to enhance the shopping experience, and Rufus aims to help customers and potential buyers make more informed purchases and purchase decisions based on answering product questions, providing comparisons, price histories, and also tailored recommendations based on the user's own shopping history. This changes the user dynamic with Amazon and changes how they actually interact with the product itself. Because in order to trigger Rufus, you literally just have to go to the search bars and actually start searching for a product, which in itself is quite interrupts into the journey. You don't have to click on something to specifically get Rufus. You don't have to go out your way to do it. It naturally, seamlessly feeds into what the journey is at present. Now, what makes it slightly different and unlike other kind of just basic pattern recognition and prediction kind of generative AIs, it's trained on data to generate new content, whether it's text, images, or multimedia. So kind of like ChatGPT and other kind of more conversational chatbots, it brings a conversational layer to that shopping experience. And it doesn't necessarily have to rely on a user inputting a direct product or start searching for a product vaguely. Users can do product recommendations. So typical kind of FAQ style questions. So he's like, what are the best running shoes for narrow feet? What are the best dry powder contouring palettes? Anything like that, which can kind of go in, it'll aggregate data across the Amazon reviews, product descriptions, and PDPs, etc., to provide elements. It also provides shopping considerations. So, an example I use in a lot of talks I've done this year is around coffee machines. So, what should I consider when buying a coffee machine? Do I want pod? Do I want espresso, non-espresso? Do I want water tank? Do I want water feed built in? All that sort of stuff, which happens in the user journey, Rufus can now actually accommodate through that single application. Similarly, there's also product specific questions. So, especially with coming up to kind of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, etc. Is this toy suitable for toddlers? Is this toy suitable for ages 5 and below? Those kind of questions, which might not be apparently inherently validatable on PDPs themselves or apparent, you can ask Rufus to actually just check by data and actually give you that quick answer. So it kind of starts to remove a disutility. It starts to remove friction points. It starts to actually create and reduce, well, create opportunities to reduce barriers for users to discover and compare products at a much quicker, much faster scale. It also can accommodate follow-up questions like, does this come with warranty? Is this approved in the EU? Is this electrical safe? Those kind of things. But then one thing which Amazon's Rufus does, which actually kind of surprises me more, is it actually looks at the broader lifestyle questions and broader questions as well. So, um, say I mean, a lot of examples which are going on at the moment is people who are like, oh, what do I need to host a children's party? What do I need to host an office party? And it will actually start to aggregate products and recommendations across that without a direct product search. It's actually putting another layer to this as well. So if we actually start to look at the early what we know about it so far, the reception of it and performance. So Amazon's VP Rajiv Mehta has actually described Rufus's launch as kind of being the early days of integrating AI into shopping. So this is kind of a first real move into like an AI concierge, if you like, as you're going through the Amazon shopping experience. A lot of users are already utilizing Rufus to explore product details, discover new deals, get recommendations based on their personalized shopping experiences. Um, on Prime Day early this year, CNET covered it quite closely. There's a good piece by Lisa Lacey, and they actually CNET actually commented that Rufus's responses were quite generic and heavily keyword driven, like early information retrieval systems, and I think they lacked very much that level of personalization which Rufus is touting, and what I think a lot of users have expected from the early marketing and reveal materials. Um, it also tended to lack significant insights, but again, this is early days. This is an early generative model. This is an early product, and it will continue to learn and improve as we go on. But for it to be, in my opinion, the level it is and have these initial kind of hiccups and issues just at this stage shows that it's got quite a prominent roadmap. And this is definitely going to be something Amazon will be pushing down the line. It will grow more sophisticated and evolve and develop from its initial nascent form and become more and more prominent, and more people invest into PDPs, the more they invest into product reviews, etc. So it actually will become better over time. So initial market penetration might be low, but as it becomes more adopted, it evolves itself, it will become more prominent. So last kind of touch on that before we kind of move on to why, in my opinion, this is important, not for general e-commerce and not just if you sell on Amazon, but because Rufus isn't Amazon's first foray into generative AI. They already use like AI generated review highlights, which effectively summarize consumer reviews from products into little snippets and highlight common things like your sentiments, whether or not the product fits well, material grade, things like that. Kind of in a similar way when you go to a Google business profile now. It will pull through sentiment, it will pull through highlights, as little pillboxes at the top, and say you scrolling through hundreds of reviews, it will kind of be like, oh, there's 25 I mentioned breakfast in a hotel, or 27, 28 I mentioned value, or also negative sentiment points as well if they're there. So because it also monitors these reviews for these details, that can feed back into that personalization engine to whether or not something fits well. And I know this is something a lot of e-commerce clients have done quite a bit. So ASOS in the UK, for example, is just one example I can think of off the top of my head, who will say the product is this size, the model in the photos you're seeing is these sizes, and based on customers' feedback, people say it actually fits as described, loose or tight. This is that on a much more enhanced and much more prominent visible scale. So if we actually then take a step back, and why I'm kind of saying like, oh, this is great. This is Amazon's product. This is people shopping on Amazon. This is going to heavily affect vendors who sell on Amazon. Absolutely, it will. But it's how it will affect user behavior outside of this. And we need to, as SEOs, actually look at this and understand across e-commerce that people don't just go to Google to buy products. People don't just do single platforms. It is a multi-platform, multimodal experience and has been for some time. And I feel a lot of the industry potentially gets just bogged down in the quackery of whether or not TikTok's a search engine, whether or not Amazon's a search engine. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. We will have clients who will sell through Google, who will sell for Amazon, who will sell through multiple different platforms anyway. So we need to actually understand how the users navigate, what their expectations are, and what they're becoming accustomed to as actually part of this. So what I want to highlight is just some data from a 2023 survey done by ParaViews, and that actually found generally that 50% of shoppers begin product searches directly on Amazon. Google then followed by 31.5%, and then 14% itself on directly on retail and brand websites. Review websites was about 2% or something like that. So whilst Google is important in the ecosystem with further journeys, Amazon is important there as well. And we need to actually understand and be aware that people will shop around. A great example of this is another UK business called AO.com, who I think very early realized and clicked on that if somebody is on a product page and they're highlighting the product title, page one, why are people doing that? Well, I'm only going to be highlighting a product title, an SKU, if my next act is going to be right-click copy. So when somebody actually highlights the title of a product on their BDBs, they have a little box pop up which instantly says, if you find this product cheaper elsewhere, call us. We'll try and match it. They understand why users are doing that. They understand users are going to shop around, but that is just one touch point on that conversion journey, especially for considered purchases. For non-considered purchases, like quick things like potentially some cosmetics, regular buy cosmetics, non-high class clothing. So this could be some like loose gym wear, stuff which is classed as non-essentials performance. So when I do say gym wear, I'm not referring to obviously like things like shoes or pieces of equipment which are quite essential, but t-shirts or things like that, or sweat wicking, moisture wicking elements which are less considered a purchase. So with that being the general sort of element of things, we also need to look at how this is actually going to affect the upcoming generations. So whilst it is 50% generally on Amazon and 32% on Google generally, amongst Generation Z, good old Gen Z, they actually slightly favour Google. They're about 38%, starting their journeys on Amazon 36%. And then they start to actually become more multimodal using social platforms like Instagram and TikTok for product discovery. Instagram itself is going to have Meta AI embedded in it quite heavily, so that's another consideration from e-commerce as well, which we'll come on to in a later video once we actually see that more in the wild. So this really kind of helps shows and tells us as search preferences start to evolve towards more interactive, personalized experiences, Rufus kind of comes in at a critical time. We're already starting to see more uptake in AI tooling. We're starting to see more uptake in acceptance of AI, and Amazon's market penetration globally to introduce something like Rufus at this stage will enhance adoptability, will enhance familiarization, normalization, and potentially help the other AI generated tools also cross that kind of chasm from early innovators and early adopters into that early majority and mass market potential. So, kind of switching back to Rufus and understanding how this works, because if this is going to be something which helps redefine how users interact with not just Amazon, but also can help reset expectations and product discovery just across the internet, it's kind of just important to understand how that works and where it's getting the information from, because this potentially could steer a lot of user purchase decisions in the coming months, years, and potentially forever as long as it evolves. So, unlike a traditional search engine, Rufus doesn't rely on more keyword driven results, and it uses, in their own words, generative AI to create more interactive and personalized experiences. So, it's got the standard levels of natural language processing. So it can enable more descriptive and conversational searches, and things of objectivity. So things like best budget sneakers, best budget laptop, best fitness trackers under $200, those sort of things. It's able to actually apply indirect facets and objectivity to product and recommendation based searches. The second thing it has quite heavily is the custom review integration. So it does utilize all the existing reviews on Amazon and product levels quite heavily, and that analyzes the sentiment, works in that way to actually provide a more concise and comparative shopping experience versus here's some price and apples to apples. It now actually starts to bring in user sentiment into this comparative ability as well. So as an e-commerce brand, even if we are selling on Amazon or not, what can we actually start to look for? And this is something which I've been talking to quite a few companies around, especially with now that AI is becoming more prominent in user discovery full stop. Do we need to potentially start looking at other metrics in addition to the classical SEO metrics of rankings, keywords, etc.? Do we actually need to start thinking, well, we're potentially going to lose traffic anyway? There's a Gartner statistic that by 2026, search engine traffic volume, so this is searches directly originating from search engines, will fall by about 25%. So if that comes true anyway, we're going to have to become more cognizant of that user journey and where these come along. And I think as SEOs, because of the amount of data we already are responsible for, along with other marketing channels, we're in a good place to actually pivot and help create those strategies and organic touch points for this, because ultimately it's deliverance, it's content deliverance, it's distribution, it's brand touch point, and it's monitoring that across that journey through non-paid channels. So traditional metrics like on Amazon, especially not like you see share of voice, may become less relevant, giving way to more newer metrics driven by this AI personalization and AI interruption. So Rufus's conversational model, just based on that alone of Amazon and how I'm seeing AI potentially impacting e-commerce full stop, we potentially want to be looking more and tracking potentially more things like lifetime value. So even if we go back to old marketing terminologies like not marketing terminologies, even marketing thought leadership, so Byron Sharp's How Brands Grow, a lot of Rory Sutherland stuff, even like in the early days of like chapping and things like that, it's actually, and the old myth, it's easier to and cheaper to market to customers you already have versus acquire new ones. So it's making sure we're meeting those needs, being consistent, nurturing lifetime value from a customer, and not just looking at cost per acquisition and CAC, because realistically, organic as a channel will potentially always have a high CAC. It's just that LTV and different elements, especially in some niches where CPC is a lot cheaper and like it's a lot more derivative in paid. I think to just directly show ROI to CAC. The second one is around your new brand acquisition, so your NTB. So this is actually tracking your first-time customers who engage with a brand, engage with AI-powered search, how they're engaging, new channels coming in, and actually just tracking those new to brand acquisitions. They may not necessarily be conversions or events, but actually how people are discovering a brand, not necessarily through traditional Google search, but are they coming from LLMs like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Meta, etc., which is something we can track through GA4 and other analytics platforms. And then also, very importantly, from an e-commerce perspective, is actually measuring the path to purchase. So mapping out how shoppers move through the discovery purchasing phases, how they move through their funnel, what they interact with, what brand touch points they get, even if they do sponsored ads, but actually how they end up moving down the funnel with that disruption, and how much do the AI interrupters like Rufus, ChatGPT, etc., kind of remove that. In one generation, we've gone from getting the Argos catalogue a month before Christmas and going through it fervently with a highlighter or a Sharpie and picking out what we want, to online shopping and AI, which is a phenomenal shift in different measures. For those who don't know what Argos is, please do Google it. I mean, it's a very British 90s and 80s tradition that was. But that, that model of having to either look in a catalogue or go to a physical store have evolved in one generation multiple times. That was pretty much a static interaction point for hundreds of years in how commerce and trade behave, especially in retail, B2B, etc. So whilst this shift is happening at a phenomenal pace, we also need to adapt to it at that pace to stay relevant, to make sure our strategies are there, make sure our upstream is clean, and make sure that we monitor top of funnel, make sure we monitor middle of funnel, and evolve our actual search strategies to be more intent driven and targeted. So this actually then aligns with the wider trends, and that is that of more kind of the rise of AI generally across e-commerce. And Rufus, I think, is a strong stalwart of that, just because of how prominent and how high a market penetration Amazon has. So AI is drastically reshaping shopping, is making it more intuitive, user-centric. As users become more familiar and normalized with AI recommendations, obviously they've got to overcome a number of disutilities, and it's got to come into their Overton windows first of privacy, trust, etc. Especially how different media outlets will potentially portray trust in AI mechanisms as well. That's going to be quite important. But also how AI can influence consumer expectations. So this again comes to how Amazon has set the bar, if you like, of user normality for e-commerce and what people expect from e-commerce platforms and familiarity to that point. And as customers become more accustomed to AI-driven interactions, this initial novelty of ooh shiny will wane. That's standard of any adoption of new technologies. Much like how electric cars are becoming more and more normal, whereas in the mid 2000s in the UK when we had things like the G-Wiz and stuff like that, that's very much a novelty item waiting to hit the crust of market penetration, have structure. But they also expect potential further personalization, further innovation, further always on. I know a lot of interactions with live chat services, having reviewed and working with a number of e-commerce sites, you'll always have that in level of customer who will literally go to a live chat, a chatbot even system, and just constantly keep pressing real person, speak to real person, things like that. But that will wane over time as interactions with AI bots become more and more normal, I guess is the best way of putting it. But then that also relies on the balance of personalization and privacy. So privacy, for me, is always one of the weirder elements online. Everyone says they're privacy conscious, but I don't necessarily think a lot of people actually understand how private data is. How many companies they're sharing personal data with through cookies, how many people they share personal data with just by signing up for like a bank account or a TV streaming subscription or something like that. That level of education will need to rise, and that is going to very much be relying on how media treats this and what level of propaganda they go to either fearmonger or reassure. Um, that will vary over time. Potentially similar to like the adoption rates you see with ad blockers on browsers, like or adoption of new browsers, full stop, like your Braves, or even from a search perspective, people uptaking DuckDuckGo or more secure email providers and VPNs and stuff for actual day-to-day use. Um, Trust is quite a hard commodity at the moment, and it's going to be that balance of providing a better service whilst building that trust. And unfortunately, with how quickly all this is evolving, how much the internet has evolved, especially over the last 30 years in terms of adoption, there will be that element of it will take a while to build up. Well, one or two instances could set you back across large segments of a mass market. The final thing I want to kind of cover off is also the emerging trend of ethical consumerism, really, across AI. So, with AI bursting into e-commerce quite heavily, because the ethical considerations of obviously like privacy, surveillance, potential biases across the training sets across this, and how easy they are to be influenced by not only Amazon or whoever is training the AI itself, but how manipulative they can be just from people manipulating reviews or PVPs from that. Um, the only way to really combat this is through clarity. And to be clear, so businesses must use AI responsibly, communicate how their technology is impacting things. Um, Google in their Q3, Alphabet even in their Q3 has shown they're working really hard to reduce the cost and environmental impact of AI overviews and AI in their technology. And that's going to be a huge stumbling block, especially as we're seeing ethical consumerism and sustainability arise in other industries quite heavily, like travel, for example, and ecotourism, sustainable tourism becoming more and more an important element, really. So all that being said, and the kind of final thoughts for road ahead, and I do appreciate you all sticking with me for the past 24 minutes, and I'm hoping you found this kind of conversation useful, and I'd be really interested to understand your thoughts, your comments down in the comments of the video. But my kind of final thoughts, so success for AI in e-commerce, especially with Rufus and how we need to adapt as businesses, will require a deeper understanding of customer needs and a commitment to the data usage. So it's understanding and how we communicate that, yeah, we might not sell on Amazon, but it's going to affect users and how they perform. AI overviews and other generative AI tooling has the potential to kind of alter that discovery process. And we need to be cognizant of the brand touch points, especially new to brand touch points, which are during that discovery process and might be side skipped altogether through AI interactions. Um, AI needs to be a change for good and positive for good in this instance. And as businesses, we need to be prepared to admit there's more unknowns and knowns at this point, but be prepared and get the data to understand those touch points. So, like I said, please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I very much appreciated you joining me today for this. This video will be available on the SALT YouTube channel. There's a link to this below. Please do go over to the channel, drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel. There's also a link to the SALT LinkedIn page as well. I'd very much appreciate you going over and giving that a follow as well. If you appreciate this video, please do leave comments, just interact with it directly. And yeah, there's going to be a few more of these coming out over the next few weeks, looking at AI across different toolings. But without further ado, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching.